I've covered quite a few television channels over the years, and more often than not, many of them have declined for one major reason: streaming. These days, millions of people get their entertainment from services like Netflix, Disney+, and Apple TV. But while streaming has given viewers more choices than ever before, it's also created a crowded battlefield with countless platforms competing for people's attention. And for every Netflix or Disney+, there are dozens of other services that have failed completely. If anything, the rise of streaming has made it even harder for new competitors to break into the market. The biggest platforms already control the rights to many of the shows and movies that attract viewers, so any newcomer has to spend enormous amounts of time and money building up a service that hasn't yet proven itself, which can be a huge gamble. In other cases, the problem isn't the content at all, but simply the inability to attract and retain enough subscribers. So today, we'll be taking a look at some of these forgotten platforms and uncovering what caused their downfall. My name is Louis, and this is episode 11 of Discontinued Nostalgia, Defunct Streaming Services.
Enjoy 90 days free. Download now. Quick bites, big stories. Quibi.
You can't make a list of defunct streaming services without mentioning perhaps the most infamous flop, Quibi. The story of Quibi is honestly quite outstanding because this service had everything: the people behind it, the names signed on to support it, and billions of dollars poured into advertising and content. It just shows that no matter how much money is poured into something, success is not guaranteed. Quibi was first revealed in 2018 as new TV by none other than Jeffrey Katzenberg, one of the key figures behind Disney's Renaissance era before later co-founding DreamWorks Animation, the studio responsible for hits like Shrek, How to Train Your Dragon, and Madagascar.
Dude, those animals are so
Aside from Katzenberg, former eBay and Hewlett-Packard CEO Meg Whitman was brought in to lead the company. With two of the most accomplished executives in entertainment and technology at the helm, investors were eager to back this project. A month after the announcement of new TV, the name was changed to Quibi. From the beginning, Katzenberg marketed Quibi as a platform for high-quality, Hollywood-produced short-form content. Rather than competing directly with Netflix or Hulu, Quibi was built around the idea that people would watch content in short bursts throughout the day. In many ways, it was trying to be like HBO of short-form content while competing with platforms like Snapchat, TikTok, and Facebook Watch. To do this, Quibi used features like turnstile technology, which allowed users to switch between portrait and landscape viewing on their phones. And honestly, I'm surprised no other streaming platform has attempted this, because I feel like this was perhaps the most innovative feature of the platform, and I could see some shows succeeding from this form. At launch, Quibi costed $4.99 per month with ads or $7.99 per month without them. Backed by nearly $2 billion in funding, Quibi quickly became one of the most heavily financed startup streaming platforms in history. The company spared no expense in building hype either, investing heavily in advertising, premium production, and high-profile talent deals, with projects featuring talent such as Liam Hemsworth, Sophie Turner, Idris Elba, Jennifer Lopez, and Steven Spielberg, along with partnerships involving companies like the Walt Disney Company, Fox, NBC Universal, Sony Pictures, Warner Media, Viacom, and more. With massive hype and even a Super Bowl commercial helping launch it, Quibi officially debuted on April 6, 2020 on the Google Play and iOS stores, and the response was lukewarm, to be honest. On launch day, the app only got 300,000 downloads and 1.7 million within the first week, and that's not really counting active users. The following week, it was already out of the top 50 most downloaded free apps. From the start, Quibi was already a sinking ship, and who knows, maybe that was the fate it was going to face later down the line, but just how fast things went south is what makes this story so infamous. The thing about all of this is that this was completely avoidable. For starters, Quibi wasn't available on smart TVs, which already sliced off a huge part of that potential audience it could have reached. Another major issue was Quibi's lack of shareability. In an age where short-form content is shared every second, Quibi made it difficult for users to share its content outside the app. And without that kind of free word-of-mouth momentum, it was really relying on marketing. Like the type you see on TV from the same machine that you can't even watch the app. You know what I mean? The next thing that might have also contributed to its failure was the COVID-19 pandemic. Quibi's entire premise was built on the idea of watching content on the go. So when everyone suddenly stopped commuting to work, Quibi's entire premise became obsolete overnight. While Katzenberg went on the defensive claiming that COVID was the primary factor behind Quibi's failure, other short-form apps like TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and Instagram saw explosive growth during this time. With that said, people who downloaded the app weren't even watching or converting to paid subscriptions. Just 3 months after launch, Quibi had about 1.6 million free trial subscribers, way short of reaching its year one goal of 7.4 million total. It would try to salvage itself by testing an ad-supported version in countries like Australia and New Zealand, as well as releasing an app onto smart TVs. None of these changes were enough to reserve public perception or create the kind of momentum Quibi needed to survive. In October of 2020, just 6 months after Quibi's launch, it was reported that the service would be shutting down and initiating a process to sell its assets. The reason for its shutdown? Well, it's pretty obvious. It was losing money and wasn't attracting subscribers. So the best course of action was to shut down operations to avoid losing more money. Finally, on December 1st, 2020, the Quibi app ceased operations and would be remembered as one of the biggest streaming flops ever. As for the content library, it was announced that Roku had acquired the rights to Quibi's 75 programs, with the shows later rebranded as Roku Originals and moved over to the Roku channel. The deal reportedly costed less than $100 million, which is a tiny fraction of what Quibi had spent creating and marketing the content in the first place. So yeah, big bust overall. Here we have one of the most recent entries on this list that have gone defunct, Freevee. Freevee was launched in 2019 as IMDb Free Dive, and well, basically it was Amazon's version of Tubi and Pluto TV, and it tried to break into the world of free ad-supported streaming television, or FAST services as they're often called today. The service mostly consisted of older movies and licensed television shows that users could watch for free with ads. At launch, the service had around 130 movies and 29 television shows, including recognizable titles like Fringe, Heroes, Quantum Leap, Without a Trace, The Bachelor, The Last Samurai, True Romance, Foxcatcher, and The Illusionist. Just 5 months later, the service was rebranded to IMDb TV after it signed deals with Warner Bros., Sony, and MGM. This tripled the amount of content on the platform and made the service look more competitive than the alternatives. Over the next few years, Amazon continued expanding the service with a mix of licensed content and original programs. Shows like Chicago Fire, Friday Night Lights, Mad Men, and Almost Paradise joined the lineup, all while Amazon began to invest in exclusive programs. One of the first major originals was a revival of the crime drama Leverage, which TNT had cancelled due to low ratings. It would also get exclusive rights to the spy thriller series Alex Rider. However, the platform's biggest success came from the television icon Judge Judy. After ending her legendary 25-year run with CBS, she partnered with Amazon to create Judy Justice, which quickly became the service's most watched original series. With all this massive content, IMDb TV needed to change to get more people to watch. On April 28, 2022, my birthday, IMDb TV would rebrand to simply Freevee. Around that same time, Amazon continued expanding its original lineup with shows such as Bosch Legacy, High School, and several reality and documentary projects. By 2023, Amazon was even bringing select Amazon originals from Prime Video over to Freevee, allowing viewers to watch some of the company's biggest shows completely free with ads. That being said, by this point, I think Amazon having two separate streaming platforms was beginning to feel a bit redundant. You had Prime Video for paid subscribers and Freevee for free users, and chances are users of both of these platforms probably use Amazon, so I mean, what's the point? Therefore, Amazon would announce in late 2024 that Freevee would be shut down and that the movies, shows, live channels, and original programming would be folded into Prime Video's free ad-supported section. And so, by September 3rd, 2025, Freevee was effectively gone, ending the run of the service that had begun as IMDb Free Dive back in 2019. Filmstruck was a film streaming service launched in 2016 as a joint collaboration between Turner Classic Movies and the Criterion Collection. It was created to appeal to die-hard film enthusiasts. Many of the films on the platform were rare, classic foreign, art house, and independent films, movies that other major platforms had left behind. At launch, the service carried 200 movies from the Criterion Collection and over 300 from various studios, notably Warner Bros. By 2018, that number had grown to over 1,600 films, including 1,200 from the Criterion Collection. Some of the more famous films to come out from the service included Casablanca, Citizen Kane, multiple versions of A Star is Born, and Singing in the Rain. While the service was moderately praised, AT&T was in the midst of completing its acquisition of Time Warner during this time, leading to a complete corporate restructuring. Now under Warner Media, this new conglomerate wanted to eliminate smaller niche services like Filmstruck and create a more unified streaming service anchored by HBO. As a result, Turner and Warner Bros. Announced that the service would shut down on November 29, 2018. But it didn't go down without a fight. Before the shutdown, a group of filmmakers and actors wrote an appeal to Warner Brothers to save the service, and luckily it worked. Just 4 days later, Criterion announced a new independent Criterion channel to launch in the spring of 2019, with a portion of their library available on the future HBO Max. So, while Filmstruck was shut down, it still lived on through its successor, which still exists to this very day. Just like Filmstruck, DC Universe was another one of Warner Media's defunct services that met a similar fate. First announced in 2017 by DC Entertainment and Warner Brothers, the service didn't announce any details beyond that a new show named Titans and a revival of Young Justice would launch on the new service, both of which were pretty big deals at the time when they were first announced, especially for Young Justice. Aside from all these announcements, it would be radio silence for the unnamed service until May of the following year that we started seeing details. Officially named DC Universe, the service was said to include a large library of DC's movies and shows spanning decades, and on top of that, it offered digitized comic books, a storefront with exclusive merch, a DC encyclopedia, and even a forum. With this announcement also came new shows such as Doom Patrol, Swamp Thing, and even Harley Quinn, which I had already forgotten that this had premiered on this platform. Finally, on September 15, 2018, also known as Batman Day, DC Universe will go live for purchase for $7.99 a month or $74.99 a year. Even though the service got props for its UI and selection, some users grumbled that not all DC shows were on it, especially ones like Gotham and those from the CW. Nevertheless, the service seemed destined to have a short lifespan. Shortly after launch, Warner Media was developing a new streaming platform, one that would feature all of its entertainment brands. As you already know, this would later become HBO Max. With this new service, it will contain a lot of DC's most popular shows, as well as the new originals like Doom Patrol and Harley Quinn, which moved to the new platform and became Max Originals. This of course would raise speculation about whether the service would continue to survive. After months of cancellations, layoffs, and speculation, it was announced on January 21st, 2021 that DC Universe would rename itself as DC Universe Infinite and become a comic-only platform, with the remainder of the content moving to HBO Max. In my opinion, this was seen as the right move because who knows, shows like Harley Quinn or My Adventures with Superman wouldn't be as big of hits if they remained on a platform as niche as DC Universe.
Andy mentioned a little bit about Vessel. I'll tell you just a tiny bit more. We provide early access to the video and creators that people adore.
Now the idea behind Vessel, I get it, but upon execution, it just leaves me confused as to why this exists. Vessel was launched in January of 2015 by ex-Hulu CEO Jason Kilar and CTO Richard Tom. It was marketed as a place for fans to pay for early access to popular YouTube creator videos. Viewers could subscribe for $3 a month or $19.99 annually to get new videos 3 days early before releasing anywhere else. In doing so, creators on the platform received $7 for each fan they converted to a subscriber, and a supposed $50 CPM versus $2 on YouTube. To get more people on board, Vessel partnered with several YouTubers such as Linus Tech Tips, Shane Dawson, Good Mythical Morning, Epic Mealtime, Super Best Friends Play, and many more. Despite all this, Vessel never gained any traction. Sources noted that even after raising $130 million, including a lump sum from Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos, it still struggled to attract a large user base. Just 18 months after launch, on October 26, 2016, it was announced that Verizon had purchased Vessel and would be shutting down the service at the end of the month. And while buying a service to simply kill it sounds totally psychopathic, Verizon bought the engineers working on Vessel into the company to help fix its struggling streaming platform, Go90, another service we'll discuss in a moment. Not long after launch, YouTube Red, which is now YouTube Premium, launched as a way to watch videos without ads and support creators all on one platform. Not to mention, Patreon was already an established outlet that helped support creators, so it's not a huge surprise that Vessel came and went so quickly. Speaking of Vessel and Verizon, Go90 was Verizon's attempt at making a streaming service. That's right, a mobile carrier creating their own streaming service. Probably not the first to do it, but the most ambitious. Before its 2015 launch, Go90's origins go all the way back to late 2012 to early 2013, when it was under development by Intel out of all companies. In February 2013, Vice President of Intel Media, Eric Huggers, confirmed rumors that the company was developing an internet TV service with a set-top box to boot.
You're going to sell the equivalent of a set-top box or a Roku box or an Apple box, but it's going to be called the Intel box, but not the Intel box.
It is an Intel-powered device, yes. It is a consumer electronics product with beautiful industrial design, powered by, obviously, an Intel chip. But that's not where it ends. It's not just the device. Where it really gets interesting is we're working with the entire industry to figure out how do we get proper television delivered via the internet to consumers. So this is an over-the-top service where we will deliver both live television, broadcasts, cable nets, and other.
Considering this is Intel, the computer chip company, it seemed strange for them to pivot into this direction. But it seemed that by this time, Intel was trying to create a new division to break into the television industry by introducing an internet TV-based service. Sound familiar? By mid-2013, the new service was revealed to be called OnQ, a cable-like streaming service delivered entirely online, and it hoped to launch in late 2013. But by September of that year, it was later reported by the New York Times that Intel had paused the launch of its online TV service. This was mainly due to Intel failing to secure content deals with major cable networks. Considering Intel isn't an entertainment company, it's pretty obvious that they weren't able to get major partners. As a result, OnQ was indefinitely shelved, leaving all hardware and software that was practically ready to use to rot. It wouldn't be long, however, before Verizon stepped in and purchased Intel Media in January of 2014 for a reported estimate of $200 million, alongside the entire workforce. Once the transaction was completed, Verizon pretty much erased all references to OnQ and began development of a brand new streaming service. After months of development, on October 1st, 2015, Verizon would launch Go90. Unlike Intel's original vision of creating an internet-based cable service, Go90 was designed to be a free, ad-supported mobile video platform aimed primarily at teenagers and young adults. The service featured a mix of television programs, sports, music, short-form videos, and digital creator content, while also incorporating social media features that allowed users to follow one another, join communities known as crews, and share clips among users across social network. Honestly, I'm surprised Quibi didn't take any notes from these features. I will say though, the branding is pretty cool. The name Go90 is playing on rotating your phone 90 degrees to watch a video, and just by the name alone, with both the Go and the 90, it almost has the same, name and look to it, so yeah, it's pretty good branding. Go90 was set to offer original series, creator-driven shows, sports content, and licensed programming from cable channels to make it feel like a real destination. Some of the original series included Mr. Student Body President, My Dead Ex, The Runner, Tagged, Street Fighter Resurrection, and Transformers Prime Wars Trilogy. Much of the content came from studios and digital brands already known online, including College Humor, Funny or Die, Nerdist Industries, Machinima, MTV, and Rooster Teeth. It even tried getting into sports by striking a 3-year deal with the National Women's Soccer League to stream all matches not shown on television. To make things more insane, in April of 2016, the company purchased a 24.5% stake in Awesomeness TV for $159 million and committed another $180 million to produce content for Go90. They would also purchase Complex Media for an estimated $250 to $300 million. Just with those major moves alone, Verizon had invested over $1 billion in the first year. However, with all that money thrown at it, it became clear that the video service was not getting the expected traction, averaging in the thousands. But I don't think the content was the problem. I mean, Street Fighter Resurrection sounds pretty cool, not to mention Transformers Prime Wars Trilogy, but I think the huge turnoff was Go90's really crappy interface, which leaned on a tiled layout. This could look modern, but when you have shows, live sports, and clips all in one platform, it can feel a bit cluttered and hard to understand. To address this, Verizon purchased the Vessel streaming platform in October 2016 and shut it down to improve the Go90 app. 6 months later, Go90 launched an updated version with enhanced discovery features. Yet, even with Vessel's technology and a cleaner interface, the audience never materialized. Insiders later admitted that Verizon approached this guns blazing, aggressively overpaying for content deals under the naive belief that money alone would guarantee growth. Things would signal the end for Go90 in June of 2017 when Verizon officially formed Oath, a new digital subsidiary created after the acquisition of Yahoo and its merger with AOL. This combined all of the content properties, including Go90, into one massive ecosystem, but in reality, this just put the platform in a vulnerable position. Heading into 2018, the new management wasn't sold on the new platform. Oath executive Tim Armstrong admitted that the brand was just too hard to build from scratch. Knowing that the platform was dead, they tried distributing Go90's original program content across Oath's other properties like Tumblr to at least get some eyes on the platform, but it was no use. On June 29, 2018, Oath officially pulled the plug, and Go90 ceased operations on July 31, 2018, lasting less than 3 years. Sources estimated that when you count the content deals, the on-queue and vessel acquisitions, and everything else, Verizon burned through a grand total of $1.2 billion. In its Q3 2018 financial filings, Verizon reported a staggering $913 million in charges directly to killing the service. Before we continue, guys, I'd like to give a quick shout out to my channel members and patrons. Your contributions really mean a lot to the channel, and I'm forever grateful for your support. If you'd like to support the channel and gain early access to new videos, you can find the links down below. Now, back to the video.
For this. Run into the future, charge it like a credit card. What I gotta lose, huh? I'm about to set it up.
Verve. I think this is one of the few entries on this list that I'm nostalgic for, mainly because of the shows from Mondo. I mean, I used to find Deep Space 69 funny, but you know, my humor has graduated. Anyways, Verve was a streaming service launched by AT&T and Elation, the same parent company that operated Crunchyroll at the time. From the time of its announcement, the service was seen as a Netflix for geeks, designed as a hub to unite anime, gaming, and geek culture channels under one roof. And thanks to its partners Deep Pockets, Verve managed to get a few recognizable online brands to team up, including Rooster Teeth, CISO, Nerdist, Geek and Sundry, and Frederator's Cartoon Hangover. Additional partners would later include Funimation, RiffTrax, College Humor, Machinima, Ginks TV, Shudder, and Mondo Media. So, from launch, Verve had programs such as Ruby, Red vs. Blue, Harmon Quest, Cyanide and Happiness, Bravest Warriors, and Bee and Puppy Cat. And while that doesn't sound so exciting nowadays, considering you could see this on YouTube or other accessible platforms, this was pretty much the first time internet content like this was on a legitimate service, so I guess this was a win. What also made Verve stand out was its channel-based structure. Rather than operating like Netflix where everything was thrown into one giant library, Verve functioned more like a bundle, with each partner having its own dedicated section, allowing subscribers to jump between different services without paying for multiple subscriptions. In 2017, the service launched Verve Select, an in-house channel dedicated to exclusive and curated programming. It served mostly as a home for licensed anime, cult films, web series, and even some original programming. While Verve Select never became the main reason people subscribed, it showed that the company was trying to establish its own identity in an increasingly crowded streaming market. The only problem was that times were changing, and unfortunately for Verve, they weren't changing in their favor. Over the next few years, channels like Funimation, Nerdist, Machinima, and others either left the service, shut down, or became part of a larger corporate restructurings. With each departure, Verve lost a little more of what made it special. Things only went downhill for Verve when Sony completed the acquisition of Crunchyroll in 2021. By extension, this also meant Verve was owned by them, and, well, Sony didn't really have a strategy for Verve. They basically acquired Crunchyroll to merge it with Funimation and take its name. In the wake of this massive leadership change, several of Verve's partners such as High Dive, Rooster Teeth, and Cartoon Hangover left Verve. A few months later, Verve finally announced it was shutting down the merge with Crunchyroll on May 3rd, 2023, encouraging subscribers to migrate their accounts over to Crunchyroll. And so, after nearly 7 years online, the self-proclaimed Netflix for geeks had officially come to an end. And honestly, it's a bit disappointing. Like, Verve wasn't really the best service out there, but it was one of those few streaming services that I'm extremely nostalgic for. Like, it had such a charm that 17-year-old me found quirky and amusing.
He said it! He said it! This is a completely new way to experience music, and the next step in the evolution that's taken us from 45s to CDs to streaming. But the most important thing about it is that you'll be blown away by what happens when you hit play. The right music, like magic.
You may or may not know this, but did you know that for a short while, Beats Electronics had its own music streaming service? Yep. Although the service didn't last that long, Beats Music brought a lot to the table that we pretty much take for granted today. The origins of Beats Music go all the way back to 2012 when it was known as Project Daisy. It all started when Beats purchased streaming service MLG's infrastructure and catalog access. With this acquisition, Beats began development, hoping to create a unique end-to-end music experience. With the help of Nine Inch Nails founder Trent Reznor, the service was designed to use mathematics to offer recommendations along with music selected by connoisseurs. Essentially, it was creating an algorithm that understood your music taste, a concept ahead of its time when stuff like For You recommendations weren't as common. By January 2014, Project Daisy was officially revealed as Beats Music, a new service promoted as a platform with heart, offering human-curated playlists, editorial content, offline playback, and a library of over 20 million songs. One marquee feature of the service would be the sentence, which let users generate playlists by selecting moods, genres, and other details. While the service was well received, it had entered a market already flooded with competitors. Not to mention, Beats Electronic was a few months away from experiencing a massive change. Just 4 months after the release of Beats Music, on May 28, 2014, Apple announced it would acquire Beats Electronics and Beats Music for $3 billion, making it, at the time, one of the largest acquisitions in Apple's history. Many people assume Apple was buying Beats mainly for its headphones, but in reality, Beats Music may have been just as important, if not more. By the mid-2010s, Apple had already ruled the digital download era through iTunes, but with the industry moving on and Spotify quickly pulling ahead in the world of streaming subscriptions, Beats gave Apple something it desperately needed: an already built streaming platform, licensing deals, and a team that understands how the subscription music business worked. Then, everything came full circle. At WWDC, Apple unveiled Apple Music, and with that, the DNA of Beats Music was all over it. Human-curated playlists, editorial recommendations, music discovery, and even Beats One Radio all carried onto Apple's new service. When Apple Music launched on June 30, 2015, Beats Music began to fade away, with users encouraged to migrate their libraries and playlists. By November 30, 2015, it was gone for good. Although Beats Music itself lasted less than 2 years, its impact was far greater as it effectively served as the prototype for Apple Music. Today, Apple Music is the second largest music streaming service in the world, just behind Spotify. If you had an Xbox, or hell, even a Zune back then, you probably used this service at some point. In 2006, Microsoft released its iPod competitor, the Zune, and despite the mockery it got, it had some innovative features for the time, like wireless sharing, which let users send music to nearby Zune owners. Those shared songs could then be played 3 times over 3 days. It also came with its own marketplace, so it just wasn't a device for loading music from a computer. For many people though, it still didn't feel like a compelling enough reason to ditch an iPod. It wouldn't be until 2008 that Microsoft announced and released Zune Pass, an all-you-can-listen-to music subscription service designed to compete directly with iTunes by offering something Apple didn't: unlimited access to a massive music library for a flat monthly fee. For 2008, Zune Pass was one of the first legitimate music subscription services to launch. For context, Spotify had just been released a month prior in Europe and wouldn't arrive in the United States for another 3 years. And while services like Napster and Rhapsody were considered early examples of subscription-based services, Zune's affiliation with a company as big as Microsoft meant it could be used for more than just simple MP3s. For $14.99, subscribers could listen to unlimited music and keep 10 MP3 tracks per month permanently. Even after canceling, you were still able to keep monthly downloads. So not only were you listening to unlimited music, you were also building up a digital library. To make it even more worthwhile, if you were part of the Microsoft ecosystem at the time, Zune Pass could work across Windows PC, Windows Phone, and even Xbox 360. So yeah, looking back, this was honestly one of the best deals in music streaming history. But heading into the 2010s, Zune as a brand began to lose relevance. With the iPhone releasing a few years later and becoming an all-in-one handheld device, that made people more reluctant to abandon the curated iTunes libraries. And from there, the Zune didn't just lose to the iPod, it was completely ran over by the invention of the modern smartphone. And with the brand dying, everything associated with it was too. As Spotify began to gain a stronghold in music streaming, Microsoft lowered the price to $9.99 to attract people, but no luck. Eventually, the writing was on the wall, and by November of 2011, Microsoft announced the discontinuation of the Zune brand as a whole, with Windows Phone becoming the focus of its mobile music and video strategy. Over on the Xbox side, with the upcoming announcement of the Xbox One, Microsoft was attempting to reposition Xbox from a gaming platform to a more entertainment-focused platform. I'm pretty sure everyone's familiar with the announcement of the Xbone and how this moment really signaled the long downfall of the brand. As part of this effort, Microsoft's music and video services were rebranded as Xbox Music and Xbox Video in October of 2012. As for Zune services, they would begin winding down almost immediately. Following the discontinuation of Zune hardware in 2011, the Zune software itself was placed into maintenance mode until November 15, 2015, when all services were officially retired, putting an end to the Zune brand once and for all. Except for that Guardians of the Galaxy's crossover, but that's something completely different.
It's called a Zune. It's what everybody's listening to on Earth nowadays. It's got 300 songs on it.
Back on the topic of Xbox Music, this was essentially a new cloud-based service built from the ground up that worked across Windows 8, smartphones, and Xbox. What Microsoft really did was carry Zune's music catalog and a few familiar ideas into a bigger platform, expanding it to about 30 million tracks worldwide. Zune Pass would also be renamed to Xbox Music Pass, and if you know what Spotify or Prime Music is, it's basically that. It will continue that way for a few more years until 2015, when Xbox abandoned the trying to be an all-in-one platform thing and disassociated from services not related to gaming. And so, Xbox Music will once again rebrand to Groove Music to better align itself with Windows 10. Other than it completely retiring the old Windows Media Player as the primary video playback app, Groove was pretty much the same compared to Xbox Music, just with a blue coat of paint. Xbox Music Pass would also be replaced by Groove Music Pass and position itself as a simple subscription option at just $9.99 a month or $99 a year. However, I feel like this rebrand was too little too late, as by the mid-2010s, Spotify, Google Play Music, and most recently Apple Music would have already built a reputation and have captured the majority of the market share. Even Deezer was more popular than Groove. With Microsoft's lackluster mobile ecosystem and Windows Phone fading into irrelevancy, sustaining a premium music subscription service was becoming increasingly difficult. So, on October 2nd, 2017, Microsoft would announce the discontinuation of Groove Music Pass and music purchases through the Windows Store by the end of the year. The Groove app would remain, but only as a way for users to manage and play the music they already owned. They also partnered with Spotify and began directing customers towards the service, even offering tools to transfer music libraries and playlists. From that point on, Groove was little more than a music player until 2022, when the Groove name itself had effectively disappeared, replaced by the new Windows Media Player. To take things a step further, in July of 2025, Microsoft would also quietly discontinue their movies and TV storefronts across Xbox and Windows. In many ways, this marked the true end of Microsoft's long-running attempt to build a digital entertainment ecosystem. What began with the Zune marketplace in 2006 had finally come to a close nearly 20 years later.
We give a degree to a dog.
Not that dog. Jesus. Could you guys be bigger nerds?
No, most of us have achieved our maximum potential.
Community. All new episodes streaming free Tuesdays only on Yahoo Screen.
While I was researching Yahoo Screen, my first impression was that it was just some cheap Yahoo video sharing site. And while I was sort of right, the platform had evolved multiple times from a simple video portal into something that, at least for a brief moment, looked like it could become a major player in online streaming before it all came crashing down. The service first launched in early 2006 as Yahoo Video. However, it wasn't a standalone website, but rather a section of Yahoo's search engine dedicated to finding web clips. It wasn't until June of that same year that Yahoo began hosting user-uploaded videos directly. This was likely a response to the rapid rise of YouTube, which was only a few months away from being acquired by Google. Since the online video space was still relatively small at the time, I could imagine an alternative universe where if Yahoo played their cards differently, they could have been as big as YouTube, or at least stand by them as a competitor. In 2008, Yahoo would acquire Maven Networks, a service which provided online video infrastructure for more than 30 major media clients, including Fox News, Hearst, and CBS. With this purchase, Yahoo Video would relaunch. The update introduced a variety of social features, allowing users to upload larger files of up to 150 megabytes, create playlists, and embed videos across the web. That might not sound particularly impressive today, but in 2008, these were exactly the kind of features expected from a serious YouTube competitor. Despite those efforts to be one, Yahoo's share of the online video market remained tiny. By that point, YouTube controlled roughly a third of the online video market versus only 3.5% for Yahoo Video, with the gap only continuing to widen as time went on. By December 2010, Yahoo had effectively given up on trying to be a YouTube competitor by disabling all video uploads and announcing that by March 15, 2011, it would delete every user-generated clip, along with user profiles, ratings, favorites, and playlists. While that was the end of the YouTube experiment, that wasn't the end of Yahoo Video, as in October 2011, Yahoo pivoted again. this time rebranding the entire platform as Yahoo Screen. Instead of user-generated content, Yahoo shifted towards a curated Hulu-like model built around original programming and licensed clips. The new site launched with 8 original series, all centered around food, wellness, and personality-driven content. Throughout 2012 to 2015, Yahoo Screen aggressively pursued more original and licensed content, starting out with Burning Love, which debuted on June 3, 2012 and ran for 3 seasons. It would also earn an Emmy nomination and be syndicated on the E! Network. In September 2013, Yahoo Screen acquired Saturday Night Live's entire 38-year archive in an exclusive partnership, which also included extras, behind the scenes, and rehearsal footage. Considering this was before Peacock existed, this was like a massive win for Yahoo Screen to syndicate. However, by far their biggest acquisition was securing Community for a 6th season after NBC canceled it, premiering in the spring of 2015 alongside 2 new original shows, Sin City Saints and Other Space. Yahoo Screen also partnered with Vivo to bring music videos and concerts to the platform. It even managed to livestream the October 25, 2015 London International Series game between the Buffalo Bills versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. This would be heralded as the first ever live stream of an NFL game to a global audience via digital platforms. Nowadays, it sounds common since Prime Video airs Thursday Night Football, and I think the Super Bowl also aired on Peacock, but yeah, Yahoo Screen was really ahead of the curve as a streaming platform. Nevertheless, the turning point for everything came in 2015 when Yahoo disclosed in its earnings call that it would take a $42 million write-down on its video division, blaming the failure of its original series for not reaching the numbers that they had hoped for. As a result, on January 4, 2016, Yahoo confirmed that it was shutting down Yahoo Screen and dissolving the standalone video portal. But just when you think that was it, Yahoo was still not completely done with video. In August of 2016, the company announced a new partnership with Hulu to launch Yahoo View, a free video on demand service that replaced the old Screen portal. Unlike Yahoo Screen, Yahoo View was not trying to be a big original content platform. The service was practically Hulu's free ad-supported content after Hulu shut down their tier on August 8, 2016. My guess is that Hulu no longer wanted to maintain a free service, but they didn't want to abandon the millions of viewers who relied on it, so they partnered with Yahoo to offload that responsibility. By June 30, 2019, Yahoo View would be discontinued, leaving the site with a white screen thanking the viewers for 4 years of service. Well everyone, that was episode 11 of Discontinued Nostalgia. While streaming may have changed the way we watch television, it's easy to forget that even the biggest platforms aren't guaranteed to last forever. As we've seen today, success in the streaming world is never a sure thing. I think a lot of streaming executives believe that because everyone had a phone in their pocket, people will automatically download and watch their service. But as we learn, it takes a lot more than that to build a successful platform. Hopefully you enjoyed this installment, and if you'd like to see a part 2, just let me know. There were a few services I didn't mention due to time constraints, but are interesting enough to make for a follow-up, so yeah. If you have any memories of the services featured in today's video, be sure to share them in the comments below. I'd like to hear your experience. Other than that guys, my name is Lewis, consider supporting the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!